Morning.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening for the Europeans. Good
see
morning for the Americans. You, as usual, you can turn on your cameras. Hello, Chris. Familiar faces. Good to see you. Hi, Patricia. Hi, Francesco. Hi, Yolina.
Hi.
Great to have you on board. It's always a pleasure to have you. Our first Friday of the month, or second Friday of the month, February. I hope you're all well. So this evening, welcome to the talk. We have chosen the topic of changing behaviors. Some of it is linked with the idea that every January we start thinking about, the year coming and the year past, and what are we going to do differently? What are we going to do better? So two keywords, changing. So the notion of change, I always say the only person you can change is yourself. So thinking about this, what can you do? What can you change to improve life, yourself, people around you, and behaviors, of course, which are so important in how we connect and relate to one another. So I'll let Philippe frame the talk for this evening, and of course, as always, leave the floor to you. So be prepared to take on the mic and share. Philippe, you want to say a few words?
Yeah, just quickly to introduce that subject. Behavior is a word when you work in human resource, or when you deal with talent in companies. Behavior is something that you use kind of basically every day, but not sure exactly what it means, because it carries a lot of judgment, it carries a lot of subjectivity, so it's all over the place. We want to change this, but we're not quite sure exactly what it is. So what I did, when I came back to a basic definitions, and I found a kind of three-step definition of behavior, which I found interesting for our conversation. The first one was, quote, the manner of conducting ourselves, which we understand. So the manner we conduct ourselves means that we would have some kind of a control of our behavior. So that's an interesting part, because there's a real question whether we actually control or we don't control it. Okay, we'll come back on that. The second one was anything that an organism or a human being does involving actions and response to stimulation. What I find interesting here, it means that our behavior is guided by things that we get from the outside. We react to something. We have something happening, and then we will actually act or behave in a certain way. And the last one is the response that we give to our environment, which means, and I find it interesting in terms of behavior in business, or in behavior in general terms, that depending on the environment we are in, whether we are with, or even the context or the situation, our behavior might change, right? And there is, in these three definitions, what I find interesting is this question around how much can we do about it? So is it something we can really change, control, adapt? Are we aware that when we change behavior, we actually do change behavior? There's something that is sometimes so innate, so reactive, that we don't even realize we are doing it. And that's an element that, if you've done Savoir-Relier, and you've all did, there's a question of self-awareness, which means that, am I aware of the behavior I have, depending on the situation, the context, etc. And the first thing that is very important as part of the behavior change is concerned is, do we know what we do and when, in what sort of situation? So I would like to discuss this with you and see how much you've been in situation where you realize that you were behaving in a certain way, or you wanted to change some of your behaviors, and why and how. And then so we can start the discussion and see if we can challenge the science or the theory today that said that actually behavior can be changed. So then we'll do that as a conclusion later. Okay, so the floor is yours.
It's yours. Who wants to start? You can raise your hand or grab the mic. Quite a few of us this evening. So who's the most daring tonight? Catherine, I see you move somehow.
Very good to see you, Valerie and Philip. It's been a while. I mean, I was thinking about this. I mean, I think there's a couple of different elements to behavior, and if whether the desire to change the behavior comes from the environment or comes within. So it's depending on the environment. Basically, the experience that I had has been that, do I need to change my behavior because now I'm suddenly in an environment that behavior is no longer acceptable? Again, working in different countries for me was one of the one of the behavior that was accepted in one country was not. So I had to adapt to that environment. I mean, that was and one element, and then the other one is that also the position, in different position, whether you're in a support role or whether you're in a operational role, the way you behave is different. Someone was trying to talk. For example, in a support role, the way I behave towards others is different versus where I'm in an operational, and then also towards the behavior towards other. I mean, toward others in the interpersonal relationships. Mm-hmm. So for me, each one, any of those can be a driver. And I've been again in a situation where I needed to change because either my function has changed or because I have been in a new environment, whether it's, let's say, listening for me was one of the behavior that I had to change. Moving today, I'm head of procurement. So as a head of procurement, I needed to learn how to listen more, mm-hmm. and to be more open to others. When I didn't have that when I was in a more operational kind of role. So that's my experience.
Okay.
And did you find that easy when you had to change and become a better listener, for instance? But how did that work go? Was it easy, challenging?
I mean, it was a learning curve. I wouldn't say it was very difficult, but it was a learning curve that I consciously had to be aware of it. And it was part of, when I was attending the Savoir-Relier course, it was one of the behavior that I wanted to change as well. So it was consciously has been my objective, and I think I've achieved it. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I had to make a conscious decision of changing it all the time, reminding myself of not jump. Yeah. But it needs a kind of consciousness and a continuous
work. Who else wants to comment or share issues or experience in changing behaviors? Just go ahead. You want me to call someone, or like I do when I teach?
Well, I'd like to share that I recently read a book called 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐓𝐚𝐥𝐤, which talks about how to adjust your sort of automated responses to things. I'll put a link into the chat. I think there were some really interesting tips and tricks in there to adjusting your responses and changing your behavior.
Atomic habits. Yeah, you also have the power of habits. And definitely when you talk about behaviors, habits, what to change, the question of duration, of how long they're anchored, the notion of reflex, and the situation, as Philippe said, that forces you to change. sometimes forced into change for dramatic reasons, or because you need to adapt, as Catherine was saying, not only function, but also people. The cultural element is also definitely one of the reasons why you want to change. And clearly consciousness or awareness behind that, as we know, the self-awareness that is required to be able to take that step back, that on your own is difficult to have, requires a certain interaction and ability to, yes, listen, but also accept other people's feedback and look on you, so you can, from that feedback, take that step forward to change whatever needs to be changed for you to feel better and to improve yourself in your environment. Can you share maybe situations where that change was made an impact on your performance or life, or because sometimes changing behaviors can be a life change. Any story that some of you want to share, so we can comment on your experience rather than speak in more theoretical. Gerardo, you have light around your name. Maybe you want to speak. Annemiek, you're also reading the book. Maybe you want to speak as well.
Yeah, I'm fine to speak. I just missed a first minute, so because my internet wasn't working. So I hope I'm not repeating myself, and I hope you can all hear me well.
We did.
Oops, actually, we don't anymore. Your line seems to be unstable.
You're frozen
for now. Anybody wants to jump in the meantime? Patricia, we haven't heard you for a while. Maybe you want to speak. Or Ray, usually one who speaks a lot. Or Michelle, Robert, anyone. Come on, jump in.
Sure, I will. I was thinking about making a distinction between adapting yourself to certain situations and making a true change. Because sometimes your ability, especially in social behaviors, can make you do things different in order to adapt to a certain group or certain situations. But that doesn't mean that you have changed. I was thinking about this pandemic year where we have to keep distance, and me as a Mexican, we are very used to hug and shake hands and be very close to each other. So you have to change, but when I am with my family, for example, and I feel safe, I do the same things all over again. So I didn't change at all. It's just me adapting to a certain situation. So in order to do a deep change, you have to, as Catherine was saying just a minute later, you have to have the desire to change, and you have to have clear idea of the benefits that you can see with that change. So only then you can truly make the effort to change yourself and make it permanent. I was thinking, for example, I used to work a lot in the business area, and you have to avoid mistakes and everything. And suddenly I became very close to a design school, and the designers are more open to errors and to learn from doing. And after 5 years, I can say that I am a mix between the designer's way of doing things, and I see the benefits of accepting errors as part of the job, as part of growing and learning, and not trying to reduce mistakes at all costs. So I think that in that way I have changed, but it takes time to make change, and it takes a lot of work and a lot of effort from yourself. So that's what I was thinking.
Thank you, Ray, and thank you for bringing up the question of time and effort. The will to change is one thing. The actual action to make it happen and make it happen for a lasting change. When you said permanent, and how your habits are embedded in you, and how the change, if you want it to be permanent, needs to be reinstated constantly for it to be working. 𝐓𝐚𝐥𝐤, you're back with us. You wanna continue what you started sharing?
Yes, I was actually, when I stopped, the last thing I asked was, can you hear me? But then it went all black. So I was like, oh my God, not again. But yeah, the last part I've heard, so I hope I'm not, repeating someone. But I also think it's a major change in mindset, so to say. I recently started a new job, a new company. For me, a total different environment as well as product, everything. And I've noticed that I have a major shift in my behavioral change in my behavior, quite significantly. Also, I knew that I needed to change for myself, and I think it's more mindset. Someone asked me last year when I was afraid in my last job due to certain management, that I was afraid to speak up, afraid to say if things were going wrong or were if things were challenging. I never discussed things. I wasn't really open. I didn't really communicate. So it really helped to join the leadership course. But as well, I really realized that it's for the business. It's not personally. So you really help the business if you speak up. And now I do speak up every day. I say when things are when it's challenging. I say when I don't have time, I flag things. And I really feel that I also have this confidence now that I do valued, I am appreciated. And it's not that they do it, it's really that I changed my mindset as well as my behavior. So I think they really connect in that sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very true. Very true. Anybody else wants to jump in?
Yes, I would like to comment here also regarding the previous statement. I think that it's also about of a certain moment you are in a certain mood, right? As an example, very simply, all of us have been traveling, right? And wonder what, when we are abroad, far from our home, in a very different culture, even if we know that it's just for a few weeks, then our behavior automatically becomes quite different, right? Sometimes adapting ourselves, but from a curiosity standpoint, and try to cope with. I don't know. As an example, when we go to Spain, usually dinner is it's quite late compared to other countries. As an example, and we get adapted to that, and we change our behaviors in a certain way, and very refreshing also for us to take a different behavior for a while, even if at the end of the day maybe we come back to our own style of behavior. Sometimes being in a completely different environment, it's refreshing to free up yourself here and adopt a completely different behavior.
I think one thing you're referring to that is maybe food for thought. We all have idiosyncrasies, things that are anchored in us that no matter what we do will stay, and the surface can adapt and change, but what's inner, that's very deep, sometimes remains. One thing that I find very interesting in what you've said this evening is the being challenged for example, being confronted with a different corporate culture, like more creativity, being allowed, as Ray was sharing, being allowed to make mistakes versus not being allowed to make mistakes, and how it changes elements in you. Being confronted with foreign environments that put you in new situations where you are rediscovering parts of yourself, or maybe elements of yourself that haven't been used to a certain point and are now discovered because of this new environment. So it's not just a question of adaptability, it's the question of willingness to do something new and to endorse new behaviors, and then for you to decide consciously or not whether or not it is part of what you want to become. And what you want to become, going back to Ray's example of being more open to creativity and making mistakes versus being in control and not accepting errors, that kind of different environment can push new aspects of you which are in you somehow, but they've been dormant. And to be able to improve yourself, we always push you outside of your comfort zone. And that ability to go out of your comfort zone and challenge yourself in new environments, new situations with new people, which is, by the way, something you can do quite easily when you engage in doing again duos. You know, you've done your solo, you've done the self-reflection with yourself, and then you open to a total stranger and you share your solo, and you're going to exchange this solo with the person that is by nature different from you. That encounter, the reading of someone else's solo and that duo that you engage in, that discussion that you engage in, will by nature make you discover outside of your comfort zone elements of yourself that you don't know. So that very simple and fundamental exercise of the Savoir-Relier, which is solo and duo, this what we used to call the self-portrait, and the conversation that we now call the solo and the duo, those two elements are so important to practice on a regular basis because of that ability for you to raise your self-awareness, your understanding of who you are, your self-consciousness, and your ability to capture elements of yourself that others perceive in you that you may not perceive in yourself. And by being confronted to people who are different from you, people you don't know, and accepting that exchange, you will by nature be more able to make the decisions whether or not you want to change. Because again, there's that willingness and that deliberate desire to make those changes. Not everybody needs to change at all times, and sometimes stability is what you need. So finding the right momentum, the right environment, and how you want to adapt is also based on who you encounter and how you accept to meet other people through this connection that we have developed. Sultan, I think you have your microphone on. Yeah, thank you very much. So this is something that you can pursue and that we find in our practice moving forward with the Savoir-Relier in different contexts, in companies or even in my courses. I recently did a new MBA course with the Savoir-Relier, and new people involved, new discussions and new reflections about using this approach to develop yourself. And we find that it's so powerful in how you can keep understanding yourself, discover yourself in an endless process. The question of time, as Ray mentioned, is really to the point in how you will step by step unfold aspects of yourself, dimensions of yourself that life puts forward and makes you exercise in a different context. And it can be professional, it can be personal, it can be a geography, like being in Spain versus being in Asia, for example, that by nature will make you exercise aspects or facets of yourself that are in you, but that need to come out in different lights. And as always, I speak too much. So who wants to go on and share perspectives and experience?
Hello, everyone. I would like to also share my experience, and it will be linked also to the topic which Anna was speaking about when she changed her job. The situation was same basically also in my case, because in the past I was quite also shy. I didn't want to maybe say no to the person, or somehow, yeah, because I thought it will maybe, I don't know, insult the person or something. And I was in the environment in the new job, which was basically very dynamic, and I had to make very quick and fast decisions. And I was in this environment, let's say maybe for 1 year. And then I realized after 1 year, when I was in my private life and situation changed, that I transferred these quick decisions, which I was doing in my work, to the real life. And I opened basically the point that I was, for instance, if there was a line which I had to stood in, I was not thinking that I have to stand in the line, but I was trying to get exact result immediately. And when I catch myself in this situation, I just realized that how this work changed me in such a short period. And then I was questioning, like, what happened and how can I use it in the future, maybe to be, yeah, when I find myself in the situation now, I'm more thinking like, okay, what is the result of the next step? So yeah, just my experience from the previous years as well.
And thank you for sharing, Michel. That's I think you're pointing to one element that we try to engage you in the process of improving yourself and your life. It's the question of reflexivity, because what you're talking about and your ability to capture what has been going on and to observe what's going on in you that is making those changes, and then to act upon what you observe, is a skill. And it's a skill that we call reflexivity, is that stopping, taking a step back, looking at what's going on, looking at yourself, looking inward, and making those more conscious and more aware appreciation of who you are and how you are evolving, to then decide where you want to go and how you want to use this new skill or this new adaptation or way of behaving. And I think that reflexivity, we keep working on it and writing about it, which is the first milestone of the Savoir-Relier, this solo that take the time to stop and think, but not just think and write, because that writing is also a big learning process in understanding what's going on. It takes you much deeper and not just to the surface of what is happening. We can only enforce and encourage you to keep on this practice, keep with this practice of reflexivity, and that's a very important point that you just made.
Yeah, I would like just to add something about what Michel just said about the change job, right? Which, because you are actually in a new situation, in a new context. And of course, you have to change because the culture is different, etc. But there's something which is very important, is it's all about action, actually. When you realize that you have to change, you have the need for it, and this is the word self-awareness, etc. But you have to do something about it. And the fact that you are in a new context, you don't have to change the context. You have to adapt to it, and therefore you will be day after day doing something slightly different, repetition. And as you said, after 1 year, I realized that I was doing kind of the same at home, etc. So your behavior was changing, but it's actually the repetition of different acts. Probably some of them were conscious and some of them were not so conscious. And I think that's a very important part, that we need to accept that we are a bit animals, and the fact that we do things, repetitively and on a regular basis differently, then we start to, take it as if it was part of our DNA. So there is something that we have to accept, that it's coming kind of naturally. But I think this idea of action is kind of very important. Now, picking on the environment, there is something also very important in change in behavior, is how much the people in front of you can help you do this. And in the Savoir-Relier approach, the G of generous, which is about the attention that you pay to others, and the fact that you have in front of you people who will be caring about the way you do things, and they are attentive to your where you struggle or where you are less comfortable, will actually make you more courageous to actually make some changes, right? So as we have people in front of it, that helps grow pretty fast. I mean, if you remember people who say, well, this guy be a mentor to me. Well, at the end of the day, this is somebody who's accepted to help you grow, right? So he was or she was attentive to your needs, etc., etc. So we look for those people. Now, there's something that we can do as individuals, do it ourselves for the others. So in other words, be attentive to what the other are dealing with, living with, and maybe pay more attention to the fact that they are trying to do something different about their behavior. And we have a very important role to help them achieve this or grow into this. And we can be very closing or on the contrary, very opening and very supportive. So I think that's pretty, and the context, practical context of change of situation is the best ground for this kind of journey.
I definitely agree because what I also did was that after this, I realized that how big change I made. I tried to understand more my personality, and I tried to do two tests for 16 personality traits, and I found out that in the end I'm a ENTJ personality. So basically, this behavior of going for an action was basically something which opened within me. But yeah, I tried to learn how to handle it and not be that direct, maybe in some things.
Okay, interesting. Yeah,
you're pointing to another element of learning and progress that we do want to emphasize. And by the way, Camila just posted a poll. If you want to answer, you pointed to the MBTI test and the kind of frame that it gives you about who you are, extrovert, introvert, and so on. You know how with the approach of the solo and the duo, we try to not frame your personality and tell you who you are, but make you uncover and discover who you are in the different duos and relationships that you have, so that you're sharing feedback and characteristics about yourself from the perspective of the others, one by one, and on yourself, so that you unfold those characteristics step by step. And the ones that are repeated over and over by different people who've done duos with you definitely identify you in a certain, maybe more recurrent way. But one thing that I really would like to emphasize is the fact that yes, we have personality traits. I use in one of the videos and say, I'm shy. My nature is to be shy, and that's the way I am. And actually, many of us are that way, and we work with it. And when we're in positions of leadership, then we have to go over this being shy to sometimes have the behavior that doesn't appear to be shy, like just even teaching or just talking like right now. But the thing about your personality traits and how you exercise them involves, again, time, and again, work, and again, accepting other people's eyes on you. And that's where you learn the most. What we find in our research is that the duo element, the relationship established with someone with no intention, no expectation, and no judgment, really opens new doors about understanding who you are, not in a fixed way or dictated by a quiz or a test like the MBTI, but learned through your relationships. And by unfolding yourself in your relationships step by step and doing duos after duos, that's where you realize the complexity of who you are, the richness of who you are, and how much of you can be used in different situations and contexts, because the duo is contextualized. And we can only encourage you to, if you've done the Savoir-Relier on your own, to keep, like there are something like 30 people this evening connected in the talk. Connect again, do a duo together, share your solo, and keep going. That's a practice that has no cost except making a Zoom appointment and giving some of your time to one another. but it will only bring more knowledge and understanding of who you are. And we're reaching the end of the talk for this evening. Camila, you want to say a few words maybe about the poll, if we've had some answers?
Yes, I'm going to share the results. So yeah, we got a little bit more than half of the people who answered. 12 said yes as a regular or as a one-time event. 4 didn't think that doesn't suit them. So I think we're gonna try maybe do an event this month or next month and see how it goes. And from there we can decide to make it regular or decide to make it as regular as we want. Let's say like this. But I think it's for myself. I think it's also a very good opportunity to do a duo and kind of book that time to do it, because otherwise it's difficult to find in our routine time to do those things. So.
And thank you, Camila. It's definitely a question that we have in our practice that we haven't yet come to grips with. The question of time and setting the time to do this type of moment. You know, it's in your calendar, in your diary. You set a time where you're going to spend an hour and a half with someone, just talking and exchanging after reading each other's solo. This practice, we know is beneficial. We know it helps you, and the feedback we have is constantly positive. Now, it doesn't matter how positive it is, regardless of this, many people have a hard time deciding on, okay, let's make a time. So more and more we organize ourselves by setting events where, okay, if you meet, you're going to be matched. If you meet at, let's say, next Friday at 6 p.m. French time, whoever is present will be matched with one person randomly and will share a solo and do a duo. And that it's done. And at the end of this session, it's just you and the other, and it's the feedback you share, it's the characteristics, and it's learning. And we find that setting the time for a large number of people actually creates the conditions for this unfolding of your relationships and your understanding of who you are and how you grow. It just makes it happen. And maybe by trying this new duo session or duo event, it's something that we can try and see. You know, we like to experiment and do new things at the same time. Now I'm being reminded of time, and it's 7:08. So we're going to have to close it for this evening and look forward again to see you next month for sure for the talk. And wait and see for announcements when Camila or Camille set a time for a duo event. If you want to try, it would be our pleasure to follow you and see how randomly you can connect with one another and keep engaging in this practice that only helps you develop yourself. We look forward to seeing you again. Thank you, Philippe.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
guys.
Francesco. Thank you, Savoir-Relier team, Camilla and Camila and Camille, and all of you to be present over and over. It's always a pleasure to spend this half hour with you. Thank you so much.